welcome our state representative, Ginny Ehrhart, and I'm getting ready to admit Scott Johnson. Welcome, Scott. Here he comes. Not quite on yet. Here comes, yep, there's Scott. Hey, Scott, welcome. We got Scott Sweeney coming on. We got David Burdell, Dan Mahoney, and I think all you guys are on. So feel free to unmute yourself. By default, you are all muted. Once we get started and have our guest speaker start, we'll probably mute everybody again. But for the time being, you are welcome to converse until we officially get started. Really appreciate everybody coming together. My name is Nathaniel Darnell. I think y'all know me. I'm the Vice Chair of Communications for the Cobb GOP and the Chairman of the Cobb County GRA. The Cobb GRA is very kindly letting us use their Zoom account this evening so that the House District 36, Gene Lewis, can have this special meeting with our state rep, Ginny Ehrhart. Very excited. How is crossover day?
It's exhausting. It's a little tired. We're actually back in at 7 o'clock, but Representative Seltzler will be joining us here in a few minutes. He's in Rules Committee right now. I'm actually in his office right now. He's been kind enough to let me use his office because mine's across the street. But he will be joining us in a few minutes just because he has a slightly different perspective that he can share on this topic. So we are not voting on anything here, I think, for the next 30-40 minutes. So I'll be able to devote my time to y'all.
Great. I'm kind of concerned that you might not be able to make it because of the crossover.
Right. And we don't always know when crossover day is going to be until it's announced, but we're okay at the moment. There's going to be a lot of announcements and things that go on when we first come back into session. So I think we'll be fine. Our majority whip is aware that Representative Seltzler and I are going to be off the floor. So anything that where every last vote is needed, they'll hold that until we get back on the floor.
Oh, good.
I told him, I said, listen, House District 36 is very important.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of what we did. Particularly in November, you know, we had 82% turnout. That's significant, I think.
It is.
And we 14 to 15 thanks went for Trump, and he got about 60% of the vote.
Right.
Yeah, one of the few still reliably red areas in Cobb.
Right.
So Gene, this is your meeting. So did you want to do anything to kick it off before I give kind of the ground rules and how we'll handle questions and stuff?
Right. How many people do we have attending? Can you have a head count? 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 so far.
Okay.
There'll probably be a lot of
I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I had planned to just have a few comments about the caucus coming up this weekend and reminding folks of that and encouraging everyone to pre-register. And that pre-registration link can be found on the Cobb GOP website under 2021 conventions. And that makes things a lot smoother at the caucuses if we have people pre-registered, because their information is typed on the forms and we don't have to deal with handwritten documents and all. So if you haven't pre-registered and are planning to attend, please do pre-register. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up to Representative Ehrhart. Ginny brings a real conservative-minded policy platform to the district, and public health, safety, and transportation and education are her priorities. She brings a broad, pragmatic, and solution-oriented perspective to public service that she believes citizens want under the Gold Dome. Yes, we do. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jean. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you this evening. I knew this was a group that I needed to speak to, and I wanted this to be one of the first groups that we approached because I think that we are like-minded in so many ways, and we have we are headed down a path now in West Cobb that I'm very concerned about. You know, I've talked a lot about how the role of a legislator, the role of any public servant, quite frankly, all of you included, is to keep your eyes and ears open about things that may affect or may have an adverse effect on our district in the years, not just in the immediate future, but in the years to come. I don't need to tell any of you what we faced in November. And I don't need to remind any of you, I'm sure, of the changes that we have seen in Cobb County at multiple levels. The Cobb Commission, the DA, the sheriff. You know, it was concerning and disturbing, quite frankly, for many conservatives. What happened in November, not fully unanticipated, but concerning none the least. And you know, you're absolutely right about our solidly red district. We enjoy one of the last sort of bastions of conservatism in Cobb County. I'm not saying that there are not pockets of well conservative across the county, but East Cobb is unique in its makeup, in its demographic, in the sense that we still do, I think, have a real affinity for self-determination in West Cobb. I never apologize for that, and I find it to be our greatest qualities. I am fiercely protective of our way of life in West Cobb. Representative Seltzler, Representative Reeves, and I have been working on this project together with help and input. We are so very grateful to Scott Johnson for his willingness to step up and be the executive director of the nonprofit that we have formed called Preserve West Cobb. That is sort of the legal entity that will be handling the feasibility study and things like that as we move forward. But let me stop for just a moment and take a step back. People have been referring to Ed and I lately as good cop, bad cop. Ed is wonderful in his very eloquent and inspiring way that he creates a vision for everything that is good about West Cobb. And that is why it is so important that he is sort of on this team with me. He shares this vision. I tend to be a little bit more the bad cop, only in the sense that I like to come in and speak frankly about what we're facing. And I try not to be overly alarming about it. I'm not trying to scare anyone. In this group particularly, I feel that I can speak very frankly because I believe that you guys are probably seeing many of the things that I have seen. I am concerned about the direction of West Cobb. I am concerned about the vision that the current Cobb Commission, which is majority Democrat now, for the future of West Cobb. I'm concerned about that vision. I am concerned about public statements that have been made by commission board members about high density development and the need to bring that to West Cobb. I'm concerned about comments made by the now chair, former just Commissioner Lisa Cupid, about West Cobb needing to basically take on its fair share of industrial development. I'm concerned about the developments that I see being considered by the Planning and Zoning Board all around West Cobb. And I understand that right now, as it stands, we have one representative, one commissioner, Kelly Gambrill, to represent 200,000 citizens in Western Cobb County. She is outnumbered. And the board has the numbers that it needs now to make those final determinations on planning and zoning. That is my biggest concern. Not because we are trying to stop all development in West Cobb, but because we want responsible development that is self-determined by people who live in West Cobb. So essentially what we have now is a situation where we've got the majority of the board members do not live in West Cobb, may or may not, most don't, share the same vision for West Cobb that I believe, and that I think you believe, and folks that are working with us believe, that we have things in West Cobb that we need to protect. We like our wooded lots. We enjoy our lower density housing. We don't want to jeopardize that through an uncontrolled, unchecked growth of both high density housing and industrial development in West Cobb. So when I talk about cityhood, which by the way is not something that a year ago I think would have even considered. As many of you, as a conservative, a small government conservative, I never think there's a reason for another layer of government or additional government. But what I would like to say is that I don't really view that this way. I view this as a protectionary measure for West Cobb, an opportunity to take these development decisions and place them squarely in the hands of West Cobb citizens. So it's really more of a replacement government is how I view it. And it's very narrowly defined and very specifically outlined. We are looking to take 3 specific types of services: planning and zoning, code enforcement, and trash pickup, and take those away from the county and put them clearly squarely in the hands of a West Cobb or City of Lost Mountain City Council. So the purpose of this endeavor is local control and self-government. If we are going to do this, we need to do it now. We enjoy the luxury of a Republican governor right now, and I hope that 2 years from now we can say the same, but there is no guarantee. Embarking on something like this 2 years from now, should we lose the governorship, we can rest assured that no governor would sign a bill to create a City of Lost Mountain. It would not happen. So timing is of the essence. I think Ed has just arrived, so he will be able to share his input as well. I've given you a bit of an overview here. Probably one of the best things to do is to find out what sorts of questions that you do have. I do also want to make a point here that a really good thing to do will be to go to the newly created website, preservewestcobb.com. On there, you will find an overview of sort of the reasons we're doing this, what the problems are, what the solutions are, and what the path to cityhood in West Cobb looks like. It's a 2-year process. It has to go through the legislature. Ultimately, it would end in about, here's that. Ultimately, it would end in about next year, next summer, or November of 22 with a referendum where the citizens of West Cobb would have the opportunity to vote on whether or not they want to incorporate and create what would be the 12th largest municipality in the state of Georgia.
Population-wise?
Population of about 72,000.
Yeah, just to chime in on what Ginny said as well, if you don't think it can happen, you need to start taking a look at what's already occurring in Buckhead. And in Buckhead, they are already talking about rezoning and higher density in many areas.
I believe some of the changes that we're seeing in Georgia are setting off a wave of sort of action towards cityhood. And I view them all as being created for the same reason. It's a protectionary measure to put a protectionary city in place so that the citizens who live inside those city limits can make the determination for the development in their city, can have a say and not defer those decisions to a larger entity for whom many of do not actually live in those city limits.
And I'm sure Ginny nailed this because she tells the story as well as anybody. I just, to me, the question that comes up is, what are the political goods that we want out of this? What do we want? What's the why? And I think the issue is there's such a unique quality of life in West Cobb. And I talk to clients of mine that live out in LA. We're talking about our communities and things. And I said, you can buy a home in West Cobb on a 3-acre lot with a 3,000 square foot, 3,500 square foot, 4-bedroom house, with trees and great schools, 40 minutes from downtown Atlanta for $500,000. And that is a unique thing. I mean, Atlanta as a global city is made a better city because of the preservation and the quality of life we have in West Cobb. That's not something to have contempt over. That's not something that the response to that is not, well, because of that, let's shove in as much industrial as we possibly can. Let's preserve it. Let's make it sustainable long-term. Let's have thriving commercial zones along our main roads, but let's maintain this low density, wonderful quality of life around it. So it can be a city that's like no other. And secondly, let's have representative government. Let's have every citizen elect all of the local elected officials that control their backyard. I mean, right now we can elect, people in West Cobb can elect 1 out of 5, and they can influence, a countywide chairman. But I don't see this as more government. I see this as representative government. And I think it's essential. It's something I've been thinking about for 10, 15 years. But I think I think it's time has come now. That's my perspective.
Right.
And again, it's just one of these things where if we have a common understanding and vision of what West Cobb should be, why don't we get together with people who share that common vision, as opposed to getting together with them and fighting others who don't share that vision, who are always to impose upon West Cobb something West Cobb doesn't want. Why should we live that life? Why should it be like the folks that don't share the vision? Why should they have control of your backyard when we people in West Cobb can have that? So I just, to me, it's an issue of representative government, and I think that at the local level, people should have that.
Knowing this group, I would not be surprised if one of the first questions, because y'all think a lot like I do, in terms of an aversion to big government. And I would not be surprised if one of the first questions is, how do you keep this from getting out of control? Have there really been any cities created in Georgia that didn't grow and become overgrown, bloated bureaucracies? And the answer to that is we are able and can and will put certain safety guardrails, so to speak, within the charter of this city that would make it very, very difficult to grow this city to something that is unmanageable and large and overly bureaucratic. Those can be written directly into the charter. And I do think that is an essential piece of this story, is we are not looking to create another Sandy Springs, right? We're not looking to create another Marietta, right? We are looking to have a very streamlined, specifically outlined and controlled cityhood light. That's sort of a term they use these days, is the city light. To create a municipality in the state of Georgia, you have the option of creating up to 16 city services. As I mentioned a minute ago, we're only looking to create 3. And quite frankly, they're the 3 cheapest, the 3 most affordable city services. And so what we would do, the idea here is that we would create a city charter that outlines the duties of the city and the nature of the city, but put some really strict guidelines on growing that city. Now, what might that look like in a city charter? It might be something like, in order to impose or to create any additional city service in the future, you must have, rather than a simple majority of votes, you must have, let's say, a 2/3 vote of the city council. Or let's say you might have to require a referendum of the entire city to create an additional city service. According to code, you cannot prevent a city in Georgia from ever adding an additional city service. You simply are not permitted to do it. You can, however, create that city charter so that it has to meet has to get over some very high hurdles in the future in order to grow. And I think that's a very important piece to this. This might be a good time for a question or two, because I have a feeling you might have a few.
I'll start. Taxes. How is this going to affect taxes?
Yeah, I try to not oversell things. I try not to be Pollyannish. Our taxes will definitely not be cut. My sense is, in the ideal world, it'd be a tax shift. I think it's likely going to cost a couple $100 more a year for a homeowner. I don't know if that's 200. It'll be something. It depends on how we're able to negotiate with the county. But when you think about, being able to control your backyard and having really having self-determination as a community, something less than an HOA fee is I think likely, I'm telling people a couple $100 a month. We've not
A
done
year.
this a year. Did I say
A
month?
year.
Sorry, couple $100 a year. I think it's realistic. I would tell you, at some point we wouldn't proceed with the project if it were too much.
Mhm.
But our goal is to be successful at what we do, not be so penny wise that we're pound foolish and the whole project falls apart and it's not well done, or that we end up having to promise things we can't deliver on. I think revenue neutral is not, although it's possible.
Yeah, well, Ed and I we disagree slightly on this and respectfully disagree. And it would be interesting to see who's right on this in the end. We will know for sure once the feasibility study comes back. That is a 4-month process. So we will have that feasibility study done over the summertime. We'll have those results. I believe, from having spoken to some folks who have done this, it is possible that based on the amount of revenue that we would collect based on the city parameters that we have drawn, combined with the very limited number of city services that we're going to provide, that I think we have a very good chance of having no tax increase at all. That is my personal anticipation, based on a preliminary look at what we're doing. But we will know for sure by this summer, and we will be able to tell you exactly. So some people are using the phrase minuscule to none, or none, little to no.
I would
I'd like
say-
to, our goal is to be revenue neutral.
Our goal is
That's
to be
our
revenue
goal.
neutral.
We don't want to grow any more than that. Now,
That's right.
we may find out from the feasibility study that's not practical. And if it is, that'll be transparent. We're not hiding a thing. But our goal is to be revenue neutral and not have to raise taxes. And I think that's a worthy thing for us to say right now.
Right.
And the only reason I make the remarks I make, guys, is because I don't want to, I'd rather be the pessimist and talk worst case and not try to overpromise and underdeliver. Oh, they failed. They revenue neutral. They told all these fibs. Now the real info's in and it's all coming. That's not, that in itself would be a false narrative. So, I mean, I love Ginny for what she's saying, and I think she may well be right.
We'll see.
I rather would under promise and over deliver. We're certainly, like Scott said, that's certainly what we're going towards. But personally, as I look at it as a resident of unincorporated Cobb County, it wouldn't be a deal killer for me if I had representation that cost me something more, but not as much as these other cities are charging, just something.
Right. That's obviously one of the big.
I'm willing to pay. I just don't want to have to pay a lot, nobody does, but to preserve West Cobb, I'm willing, to dig a little bit.
Obviously, our property values are going to mean a lot more to us than another $100 a year.
Right.
Agreed.
But-
And it's a really good way of looking at it, Scott. Certainly, even if there were a minuscule increase, it would certainly be when you anticipate or project what could happen down the road to our property values. Should we see an influx of high density development or industrial development in West Cobb, unchecked growth, right there, think of the savings. I mean, think of the loss, I should say, to your property values. So
let me share an interesting thought experiment. And by the way, I'm not proposing this, but there's a thought experiment. What if we had the option to lower our taxes $250 a year? And to do that, though, we would eliminate Cobb County, we would eliminate all the counties, and we would be ruled by the Atlanta Regional Commission. ARC would be our local government. They would control our zoning. They would control everything. Would you give up $250 a year to be controlled and ruled by the ARC?
No.
Of course not. So the inverse of that would be, would you pay $250 a year, 100, whatever it is, to have representative government that shares your values? I would say, to me, this is speaking for the Seltzler family, the answer is yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
One
Right.
thing you need to be cautious of is that, you can say cost neutral year 1 or 2, for example, but as you progress out, let's say 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, you'll have increases in costs across the board. So that's just the truth. And so everybody will try to factor it on millage rate, yet at the same time, by virtue of you establishing cityhood, you could very well enhance the valuations of your property. And so that millage rate even though it's static, the property taxes that are remitted still go up.
We have a question from Dan Mahoney on the chat. I don't know if y'all can see the chat, our guest speakers. He says, what would be the proposed boundaries of the city of Lost Mountain? I'm trying to pull up the map that was on the Marietta Daily Journal so I can share that. I don't know if y'all have.
I believe the map is also on the website. If you go to preservewestcobb.com. But in generally, I can tell you the western boundary would be the Paulding County line. The boundary would be Mackland Road. The eastern boundary would be Barrett Parkway, but actually it juts over, right?
Actually, it goes, we're going almost to the battlefield. If you know between Barrett Park and the battlefield, I think it's Noses Creek. I think that
Up
really
there.
kind of becomes the,
Right.
between Barrett and John Ward, there's that low ground, that creek would kind of be our eastern boundary.
We want all that good land in there. And then heading up Barrett Parkway, you'd cut west on Stylesboro Road, and then you're gonna head on up there.
We're kind of tracking Old Stylesboro, if you know. We come around Giles Road with a G, really the southern edge of Lake Allatoona is what we're thinking now.
Right.
We wouldn't go north of Allatoona, but take in around just across Marcel Road and then on down, taking in Brookstone 1 and Brookstone, and kind of run into Paulding County right just south of Allatoona High School.
Do you have any sense for how split precincts are looked at in this regard?
I've looked at that. We do have a couple. I think there's split precincts. No, the Cobb Board of Elections accommodates that all the time because the cities annex into precincts. They have that they will. That's a decision for them, but we shouldn't be, I don't think, ruled by that.
Right. And in terms of dividing the city into districts itself, dividing the cityhood into districts represented by city councilmen, that does not have to be decided now. Right now, what we just have to do is firm up the city limits, drop the bill with the charter this session. So we have until day 40 to do that. I'll be carrying the bill. We'll drop that. That's the timeline. That's the first step in the timeline. Then the feasibility study will start. That's being done by the Carl Vinson Institute at UGA. And then we'll get that study back, the results, sometime in the summertime. We'll come back into session in January, and sometime during that next session, we will vote here in the House and the Senate. There's the map. We will vote in the House and the Senate. It will require the governor's signature. And then there will be a referendum. So all of the folks living within the city limits would be the ones to vote in the referendum as to whether or not to establish a city of Lost Mountain.
And there's some
map.
We've done some Jenny already has some areas that she wants to add in. There's some areas there'll be some puts and takes here, but this is kind of the starting framework from which we will make modifications.
Okay.
The gray area to the north and the east, that's the very north is Ackworth, to the northeast is Kennesaw, and to the direct west, that's a little sliver of Marietta.
How does this intersect with the plans for reapportionment for y'all's districts? Do y'all have any insight at this point of what the drafts are for the 3 districts you're saying would be affected in this area? 2 of y'all in Reeves?
No.
Not yet.
I mean,
we can speculate, but
we just can't even talk about that right now. We don't, first of all, we don't know, but second of all, speculation is, we just need to be real, just quiet about that thing.
Sure. So in summary, we're suspecting that taxes will probably go up. You're saying it's possible we could keep them about even or keep it minimal. That's one of the downsides. The upside is we have control of zoning, and hopefully that means we also control keeping our portion of Cobb red. Is there any other major downsides? More
and I would like to mention also that given the nature of the group that I'm talking to now, and I don't say this to every group that I speak to, because quite frankly, We believe that the concept of cityhood appeals to any party, quite frankly, not just Republicans. But I can speak frankly with you folks, and there is no question in our mind that that part of the goal and the end game here with Democrats, including Democrats on the commission, is to turn House District 36 blue. I think we've had a bullseye on our back for years. And I think the fact that they have the majority on the commission and can make determinations about our planning and zoning, and we know they're talking about high density, I think it goes without saying, the goal here is to inch West Cobb blue, to move in that direction.
And there are sort of center-right, supposedly Republican developers that are just salivating. They're just salivating. They see West Cobb as an object of desire, to shove in as much density as they can get.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the people of West Cobb would not. I don't think that's their vision for their community. I'm just being nakedly honest with you guys. I think we've got to be very conscious that what happens there is a quality thing. It's not stopping any progress or development, but it's high quality, highest standards of architectural controls,
Mm-hmm.
and as opposed to just the race to the bottom.
Right.
The
And I think
public goal is to maintain the green spaces in West Cobb. You'd say
Right.
through
Right. We're not, it's not that we're trying to be a trap spider. It's not like we have ours and we shut it down to everybody else, but we need to have a say. We need to have a hand in responsible growth that improves our property values, maintains that green space. I mean, think of the effects of unchecked growth in West Cobb, not just property values. Think about gridlock on our roads. Think about crowded schools. Imagine trailers sitting in front of Ford Elementary. I mean, it doesn't take much to imagine these. And quite frankly, if you want a little demonstration of what this can lead to, look at South Cobb. Look at East Cobb. I raised my children in East Cobb. I lived there for 20 years before I moved to West Cobb. I saw Ed had to return to the floor. I saw the slow and sad demise of that part of the county. Nathaniel, yes, when you talk about, and like I said, I'm more optimistic than Ed is about the net tax neutrality on that. I really am. I've spoken to some folks who believe that is possible, primarily because of the limited expenses that we will incur, that we're looking to provide for the city. That plays into that. But yes, when you, Nathaniel, when you talk about one of the goals of keeping House District red, there's no question that is what is at stake here. So.
If we, I like to say, if we don't have a plan, we'll end up being part of someone else's plan. And it's just, that's about as simple as you can put it. And though this phone call is political, obviously it's the House District 36 for the Cobb Republican Party, this effort is not political. This effort is not driven by politics. It's not driven by demographics. It's driven by quality of life. And I've got, really,
This is something that didn't have to go see, and you get to see everybody's.
I'm gonna unmute again. All right, it's not driven by politics, not driven by demographics. It's driven by quality of life. It's we live in a diverse part of the county, and we all live here for a reason, and that's because we moved here because we like it, and we like the quality of life. We got good schools. We've got good. We like the way that 20 years ago West Cobb was largely semi-rural, not that way anymore, but still we have a quality of life that through the development that has occurred that we'd like to retain. So, and it's just about determining our own destiny. And I wish the best of the very best wishes for East Cobb or Mableton or Vinings or whoever else wants to do it. This is not a zero-sum game like, oh, we got ours, they can't get theirs. I think it's great if anybody wants to determine their own future. But determining their own future is what this is about. It's going to be different than some efforts in the past for Cityhood. And like I said, transparency and specificity. You're going to know exactly, we're going to say exactly what we want to do. These are the services we want to offer. This is the feasibility study. Read it, make your own determination. And we're going to be transparent in that process. We don't have anything to hide. And we want to make sure that everybody gets the truth so they can make an intelligent vote. And we believe the intelligent decision will be to determine our own future.
One of the questions is who is our and who are we? One of the problems of any planning, centralized planning, is boundaries. That's the failure. The friction point is always the boundary. It's the boundary of the counties. It's the boundary of the city to the county. And so what do? We create another boundary and mess up the larger scale of planning. You may not like the way the others are going, but this does create a problem. It's a circle the wagon mentality, I'm afraid, is how it will be perceived, at least. We already have 5 municipalities in Cobb County. We have 159 counties in this state. We have too many counties and too many cities. So now we're just wanting to name one for ourselves. It seems to me counterproductive.
Well, I'll tell you, and I wish that, I do wish that we didn't feel that we needed to circle the wagon, that's for sure. Circle the wagons. I don't think that in terms of the other municipalities, I mean, they were created for a reason. I can't think of a better reason to create a city, quite frankly, than in the pursuit of self-determination, in the pursuit of local control. I'm sorry that we have a commission now that does not put West Cobb interests first. That breaks my heart. My heart was broken in November when we lost the majority, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the life that we have in West Cobb because of some aversion we may have to creating another municipality. I do not view this as a growth measure. I view this as a protectionary measure. So in the end, what I have to do is I have to look at my constituents and say, you know, we made the best calculated decision we could to preserve the way of life that we enjoy in West Cobb. I think that is a noble and fine and honorable reason for creating a local control situation by way of a municipality in West Cobb. Scott, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I've said to Ginny and to Ed, you know, it doesn't come natural to me to create another a municipality because why? Because for 30 years we've lived here in West Cobb and been happy and we've had the ability to work with the county commission and be self-determining. And I hope that's the case in the future. The problem is I just can't be assured that's in the future. That's the case in the future. And I'm certainly not letting platitudes about small government and how you wish it would be stop us from determining our own future. I can't imagine something more conservative or Republican this is not a political, but I'm talking to Republicans, something more conservative and something more Republican than determining your own future. That's good. That is small government, and that is what we're all about. So the idea of creating municipality certainly doesn't run afoul of my conservative values.
You're trying to create a shield from the Democrats, and the idea seems to be that we know the Democrats are definitely going to try to mess things up. So if we allow this to stay under Republican control, at least we have a chance of being able to steer things in the right direction. I guess one of my hesitations is that it's kind of Republicans kind of mismanage things countywide, which is how we kind of got in this mess in the first place with some different projects around the stadium and around the KSU. So how do we know for sure Republicans aren't going to mess us up too?
Truth. Yeah, truth. So we'd rather have, well stated, Nathaniel, we'd rather have determination of our own destiny. You know, as I said, it's just as simple as if we don't have a plan, we'll be a part of someone else's plan. And I hope everybody's vision is as clear and as good as the people on this call for our community. But I don't want to trust that that's the truth. I'd rather trust you all as a part of this community to determine our future. And I think that if we do that, we can have a great future and a bright future in West Cobb and the city of Lost Mountain. And I believe the voters will be convinced of that.
Agreed, agreed. And for all intents and purposes, when it comes to planning and zoning right now and the interests of West Cobb, we are defenseless right now. And I don't say that to be melodramatic, but I'm saying that to reality. I mean, we can show up at every planning and zoning meeting for the next 10 years and fight and protest and carry signs and argue against the proposed development in West Cobb, or we can take the power into our own hands to determine that destiny. So sometimes it helps to have an example. I know I spoke recently with our commissioner, and an example of something that's in the works right now, and I'm not sure where it is or how quickly it will arrive, and the situation will be upon us, but some land along Barrett Parkway down close to Mackland Road, some of that, a lot of that green space that's along in there, that the commission prior to November gave assurances to folks who lived in that area, including our current commissioner, that they would not be developing that they would keep that as green space, that's county land. My understanding now is that since the change in November, that negotiations are open again with some developers to put either a strip mall or a gas station right along there in that green space. So, you know, it's not a matter of if this is going to happen, it's a matter of when, and do we want to keep putting out fires for the next 10, 15, 20 years at planning and zoning meetings, likely unsuccessfully, or do we want to say enough is enough and let West Cobb citizens determine whether they want a gas station or whether they want a strip mall? Put it in their hands.
So it'd be a war of attrition at that point.
I don't understand, why can Cobb not plan responsibly? Why are we giving up on planning as one of the 159 counties? I think House Bill 718 from last year, I think 2019, I think it's long dead. There's nothing, is there anything working this year for East Cobb, or is it dead?
No, my understanding is that it is coming back as well. And they plan to proceed with that. That is my understanding. I will tell you that I am not looking to, and people may inevitably do that, but we are making a conscious effort on our end not to conflate the two issues. They have a different approach. They're looking to achieve different things. And we don't want our interests to get mixed up with their interests. We have learned from some of the mistakes that East Cobb made last year. And we did a little research on that. The number one complaint for the East Cobb Cityhood was lack of transparency. Nobody really knew what was going on, what they were doing, or who was behind it. And those are terrible, fatal mistakes to make on an issue like this. So we are wholly committed to making sure that there are no unanswered questions, that there is no question about who's behind it, which is why we're putting the name of every citizen who's behind this and is willing to have their name on our website. Their names are listed, and we're adding more to them every day. So we don't want to fall into the pitfall that East Cobb did. Now, Forrest, I will tell you, why can't we depend on the city, on the county, to do what's right by us? You know, that's the $1 million question. I tell you, I wish I knew the answer to that. The important point here is they have really done nothing to show us that they have a concern or a care for the developmental needs and desires of West Cobb citizens. I believe that our Cobb commissioner has been marginalized for all intents and purposes. And if she was here, I would tell you the same thing. Her vote is not needed. They are in the majority, and they're interested in West Cobb for developmental purposes that suit their needs. They're not out here in West Cobb asking us what we want or what we think is important for our development. And they most certainly are not considering the opinion of our commissioner. And that's a fact.
Ginny, did you say there's a website, a URL we can go to look at?
Yes, if you will go to preservewestcobb.com. We are encouraging folks to get involved. This is a grassroots movement. This started from the ground and it's moving up. We would encourage you, you'll see, if you click around on the pages, look at the different pages, scroll to the bottom, you'll see we have hundreds of signatures on the petition already. Many folks have signed up for the, to be kept updated with the emails. We encourage everyone to follow the Facebook page, and we're going to do as many open halls as we can schedule in. We have a very big one coming up on Thursday night. This is our first, we've had a couple of small gatherings. This will be our first big Zoom informational session. And we have over 100 people signed up for that and more every day.
Nice. So here is a picture of the website, preservewestcobb.com. And she was just talking about, where'd you say we can go to see people who have already signed off on it?
Go to the About page at the top there.
Okay.
And I know we have 30 or 4 more names to add to that we've accumulated. This is a little bit about what we stand for, the Preserve West Cobb entity.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Folks, this is just the first batch of neighbors that signed up. We're adding more every day.
Great. Thank you.
We want your feedback. We want, and Forrest, I want yours. I mean, we want to do this right. And we want to do this for the right reason, which I believe we are. So any feedback or input or suggestions that any of you can provide to any of us, myself or Representative Seltzler, certainly Scott, I know is receptive to all of this as well. We encourage you to reach out to us.
All right, Gene, anything else? Anybody else have any other questions? David Darden posted on the chat and said, what is the current status of East Cobb City? I think it's kind of on hold right now, right?
Right. I think it's in play. I don't know. That is, I believe Matt Dollar is Representative Dollar is carrying the bill. I will say that they are looking to a city with far more services. I saw their feasibility study. It came back with revenue of about 45 million, and half of that would go to police. So they are looking to take on public safety in East Cobb. We are not looking to reinvent the wheel for services that we feel the county is doing a good job with. I think Scott would agree with me. I think we've discussed this. We've gotten some pretty good feedback about the satisfaction among West Cobbers about our police and our fire and those city services.
Yes. I mean, we have the precinct here has the lowest crime in the county. And I think we're satisfied with the police and fire coverage that we have. And, you know, we would just retain an MOU with the county for from the city to cover us on public safety. And I think that's the smartest thing we can do.
One question or comment I have, this is Dan Mahoney, is just looking at the boundaries. I am in the Hillgrove and Lassiter School District, but I'm on the far end of West Cobb off of Cheetah Hill Road and Powder Springs Road. I consider myself in West Cobb because of the school district, but I don't see, based on the map, that where my subdivision is, or there's several subdivisions off of Cheetah Hill Road that would be in the boundary of the city of West Cobb.
Right. Dan will be happy to talk to you about that. I know that the map is a work in progress. So I don't know exactly where your neighborhood is. You're on the, however, you're on the west side of the battlefield, right?
Yeah, I'm right off of Cheatham Hill Road. Yeah. So when it, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, closer to Powder Springs, right off of Cheatham Hill, but it's in the Hillgrove school district.
Right, and much of the Hillgrove School District is within these city limits. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. And like I said, it's still a work in progress. Ed is the one that's kind of been spearheading the map, talking to the reapportionment office here to get those drawn.
No, and I think it definitely makes sense to look at the school districts as well, which I'm sure you guys are, is the school, because I know Macklin Road is kind of the drawing line, is the way I've always looked at it with South Cobb. Everything south of that is, you know, is the south end of it. So just a suggestion. Thank you.
No, certainly. If there are any other questions, it may be that tonight you think of other questions you'd like to ask of myself or Representative Seltzler. Please feel free to email me. I'll give you my personal email address is GinnyEhrhart@gmail.com. Don't forget the extra H in Ehrhart, GINNYEHRHART and we'd be happy to follow up with any questions that you have. We appreciate your input very much.
Thank you for your time tonight, Representative Ehrhart.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Scott Johnson.
Hey, I put my cell and email in the chat. So anybody that wants to
Oh, that's
reach
a good
out,
idea.
we're open to ideas and communication. And as I said, we want to we want to be as transparent as absolutely as transparent as possible.
Right. I just put mine in.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, folks, I'm going to get back to the floor. So thank you, Jean. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to everyone. And please never hesitate to reach out to me for this reason or for any other issue.
All right. Thank you.
Very
For
much. And thank
doing the
everybody.
people's work down there, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Nathaniel, thank you.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Any other closing words? I guess I want to remind everybody about the precinct meeting on Saturday.
Yes, I'll be running for House District Chair. I appreciate your vote. And I like Mike, HD 36 Chair.
All right. All right, we'll see y'all at 10 o'clock at the mass precinct meeting at the Hilton at the Merida Conference Center, Powder Spring Street.
Great. Thanks,
Sounds
everyone.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless. Bye.
Let's see.